PT Cruiser owners, what tragedy burdened you with your car? I wanted a convertible that looked like a bathtub on wheels when the top was down. Except most bathtubs aren't purple with wood grain. When I got my first job, my parents were so happy that they offered to help me buy a used car. The PT Cruiser was the cheapest on the lot but in really good shape. I had it for 8 years, lost it in a flood. Sandy. It was a good car and was an embarrassing car, but it was paid off and always reminded me of how kind and happy my parents were when they helped me get it. Row. The gods sent an entire hurricane to destroy one PT Cruiser. The Aztec was discontinued, so I went with the next best thing. My grandma died, and we inherited it. No one ever buys a PT Cruiser. They are passed down from generation to generation since time began. The family curse that reminds us of our past transgressions. In spring 2002, my grandmother died and left us a small fortune in her estate. Shortly thereafter, my mother came home with a brand new car. It was her first brand new car ever, and for a woman of 44 years she was ecstatic that she was finally able to buy one of her own. She had fought through a lifetime of beaters, lemons, junkers and salvage yard deals just to make it to work every day, to make ends meet. Needless to say, when she pulled up in a 2002 PT Dream Cruiser, Inca Gold Pearl Edition, I was stunned. Little did we know that from the ashes of my grandmother's inheritance would rise a phoenix of seemingly malicious Detroit engineering. With the underhood servicing space of a BMW Isetta and the turning radius of a Carnival cruise liner, this vehicular version of ED lasted less than 10 years before needing major engine, transmission and suspension work, all with careful driving and regular service. Finally, it died, but in someone's driveway, and the first buy your title tow place we called understandably laughed in our faces when we told them it was a PT. One of my friends got his from his recently deceased grandmother. This is probably the case 50% of the time. My grandma bought my aunt's PT Cruiser from her to give to my mom and dad since their car had died and they couldn't afford a new one. We called it the PT Pooper. It died in the middle of the highway around Christmas last year. My dad picked out a silver PT Cruiser himself. It was actually the car he wanted. One time he legitimately grounded me for calling it a PT loser. I was in a 3-car accident. I had a PT Cruiser rental for 2 weeks. People wouldn't let me merge. That's because nobody wanted to separate the hearse from the rest of the funeral procession. My dad graduated high school in 1951 and had a deep love for cars from the 40s and 50s. Always bought old decaying cars to fix up that he never finished before selling it to buy another old decaying car to fix up. When the PT Cruiser was originally unveiled as a concept car in the mid-90s, he loved it. The first car in decades to have anything resembling the body style of the cars of his youth. He had a framed picture of a PT Cruiser on the living room wall, and shelves with models. When they made it into a production model, he planned on buying one when he retired. Before he had the chance, he got brain cancer and was gone in a year's time. A few months later, my frail, tiny, non-car loving mom bought a PT Cruiser with the works. That's an incredibly sweet and sad story. I hope driving the car was enjoyable for her, at least, because you know she drove that thing around with an enormous amount of pride. My mother owned her PT Cruiser for about 6 months before selling the thing. She was so excited to own a sleek new car until she found out it was a piece of crap. Hers was a brownish color, and her co-workers called it the penis mobile. I bought an old Mazda from a small used car dealer when I was in my early 20s. The Mazda ended up being a lemon and literally needed an entirely new engine, so instead of giving me my money back they offered up a sweet PT Cruiser at well below retail. How could I say no? I had it for a couple years and then got rid of it. It wasn't that bad. Okay, it was. True story. My girlfriend talks in her sleep. I'm a light sleeper, so every time she talks I wake up. She's always in that sort of twilight state where she will say something, I can reply, and she'll answer. So one night she says they are horrible. I hate them. I said what's horrible? She replied PT Cruisers, and went back to sleep without saying anything else. This entire thread is freaking amazing. Confession time. When I was little, The PT Cruiser was my dream car. I had posters everywhere and everything. The dark purple with flames. I had probably 10 miniature PT Cruisers of all shapes and sizes. I still cringe. Dude, Reddit is public. You should probably use a throwaway account for these kinds of things. I thought it would be funny. People would be like, Hannah, look at that loser driving that stupid friggin' car, and then I'd get out and they'd be like, never mind, that's a pretty cool guy. Nobody says that. They just laugh. I haven't got laid in a long time. I hate everything. I hope it explodes while I'm driving it. My mom's neighbor has owned multiple, let me repeat that, multiple PT Cruisers. She gets a new one when she pays off the old one. Her husband worked for Chrysler, so they get a heck of a discount on pretty much anything they want, and she refuses to get anything different. I honestly have no idea if they still make them, but a brand new one, without fail, appears every 5 years. I can only assume they simply materialize as some form of punishment for past wrongdoings. Like she sees it in her garage in the morning, hangs her head and says, I thought I really got my crap together this year. They quit making them in 2010. My family has 2 PT Cruisers. The first we got in 2002 when we needed a new car. My dad thought they looked cool. He really fell in love with it and bought another PT in 2005 when I was off driving age and we needed a new car. Kinda weird, but I find it comfortable to drive, and they haven't had any major problems. It has got the job done, and I'll probably drive it until it dies. I have a car and no debt. At least I got that going for me, which is nice. I have a car and no debt. You know where it's at, Richie Jacob. Actual answer here. I was 17 and my parents were nice enough to purchase a car for me. My dad is one of those who will only purchase a car from a certain place, so I was limited to a few options. The car I really wanted had been purchased that day, so I was left with 2 choices. A blue PT Cruiser with really girly white trim that the dealership added, or an ugly as in burnt orange PT Cruiser. Yes, my only options were 2 PT Cruisers, so I chose the lesser of 2 evils and got the navy blue one. I'm a girl, so the white trim wasn't so bad. I was bummed about it at first, but I actually ended up loving that car. It was surprisingly roomy and had 4 cup holders for all of your cup holding needs. Plus it sat high off the ground and was small, which I liked. Plus everyone knew me because of my car, which was awesome for a high school kid. I drove it for about 8 years and never had any problems. It was surprisingly roomy and had 4 cup holders for all of your cup holding needs. I got a cup holding need that only a PT can fill. Mine was gifted to me by my grandparents. It wasn't my birthday and they didn't already own it. It was used, 2 years old. I had no idea I was getting a car. Me and my mom had been sharing her 10-year-old minivan. One day I was at their house and Papa walked me to the garage and opened the door. I flipped out, cried, thanked him profusely. I was a 17-year-old girl. I had no idea that there was a stigma behind them. I thought, and still think, it's a very cute car and it hasn't given me any sort of mechanical trouble yet. It's a 2009. I'm extremely grateful to have him. His name is Perry. So, I had this freaking 2002 Ford Taurus. This was around 2006, and the car was not so old. It only had 30k miles on it. I got it for a steal from a dealership who said they had run a full inspection. No problems, no issues, all 674 inspection points good. I paid cash and drove home. Fast forward 4 months, I move out of state to take a new job. Driving the fricking Ford. Things seem good. Going over the Smoky Mountains, when the car starts to overheat. Early spring, cold outside. I was a bit surprised the car was overheating. Pulled over, popped hood, no fluid, not one fricking drop. Oh well, pour in water and did the only thing I could do. Kept driving. Fast forward 2 more weeks. Driving to my new job. Excited. Life going well. Blew through all of my money moving. But I know I made the right decision. Suddenly, there is this loud exploding sound. A bit of smoke. A frick ton of smoke. Maybe a little fire. Maybe not. Hard to tell through all the goddamn smoke. Pull over. Pop hood. Almost die from the heat and smoke and maybe fire. Now I am no mechanic. Not by a mile. However, I look down and notice a huge freaking hole in my engine. I mean, like, a real full-on freaking hole. Long story short, my thermostat was blown. No way to know. Head had been blown. Car was way overheating, but no way to really tell because of bad thermostat. The engine got so hot the spark plugs exploded out of the engine. That was the huge hole. Cracked the block too. All the pistons locked. Bad freaking news. So, and I swear this is all coming together, I just moved for a new job that I now might lose because I can no longer drive to said job. Fricked. I am so fricked. Go to a dealership. I don't want a used car again. Really, I don't. However, my credit is not old enough to qualify for a full loan yet. However, this weaselly little frick tells me the dealership might be able to work something out. I ask what he is on about. What are you on about? Well, we would be willing to extend you credit from our institution, but our selection is limited. Why? They are used cars that were traded in for, but we can't move them. We make more through selling and financing them than wholesaling them. 3 cars to choose from. A black PT, a silver PT, a white PT. Swear to God. No options. I have been driving it since 2007. No regrets. No problems. Paid it off quite a while ago. The only bad part is that I am a high school teacher in an automotive academy, and my kids give me unbelievable amounts of crap for it. Well, I leave for an hour and this explodes. I will try to reply to everything I can. Thanks for the support, everyone. Also, thank you so very much for the gold. It is nice to write something simple and fun and have people enjoy it. Now I am no mechanic. Not by a mile. I am a high school teacher in an automotive academy. What the frick is happening? My family has bought not 1, not 2, but 3 PT Cruisers. The first one was when they first came out. We leased one as part of the fast feedback program. So it was my dad's commuter car. Skip ahead a year or 2 and I'm a senior in high school. My dad hits his midlife crisis and decides he needs a new car, Chrysler Crossfire, but he has a sense of humor and fears for my safety. I was about to buy my uncle's 80s Cavalier Death Trap, so my parents buy the PT and give it to me, to be passed on to my sister once I graduate. I think to myself, awesome, it's got heated seats, a CD changer, sunroof. The works not quite as impressive on the outside, but frick people, it's a free car. Fast forward a year of not getting laid, I graduate and the car passes on to my sister since freshmen can't get parking on my college's campus. She drives it around, dents it up, etc. Jump ahead in time again, she graduates, the green machine returns to me. Hey, free car again, never fails to start up once and has no problems in snow since it's heavy as frick. My sister gets to her sophomore year in college, complains that she needs a car. My parents relent and go check out the executive lot to find a cheap car for her. They come home, smiles on their faces, start pumping her up with excitement. It's only got 6k miles on it. It's your favorite color. It's even got an aux-in and sunroof. Keys drop into her hands. Her face lights up. They step outside so she can see her prize, and her jaw drops. Another freaking PT Cruiser. My dad laughs his butt off, and my sister drives back to school. A Pyrrhic victory. So, we've got 2 points in the driveway when we come home for holidays, and my aunt comes to visit. She likes them. My dad points out the safety features and how reliable they've been. 5 days later, boom. Another victim in the He family. Now there are 3 RGB points in our driveway. Madness. I'm not sure if he's just oblivious or has a sick sense of humor until last year, when his brother's daughter is about to go off to college and is in need of a car. Dad and uncle work out the details. Mine is to be the sacrifice to appease the co-goss. We drive it for delivery, making sure she's in the house when we arrive. Uncle starts working her up. We got you a car of your own. It's a luxury vehicle. Got heated seats and everything. I hand her the keys. She's all smiles and jumping up and down. Step outside. She looks around, confused until she sees my mom in the passenger seat, waving. Jaw drops. Dreams crushed. Men in the family all laugh our asses off as the cycle continues. Never has a car been more mismatched in appearance versus reality. It looked so cool when it was new. Finding out that it was a craptastic neon under the skin. Skin that said I have a small block V8 was incredibly disappointing. Little known fact, it was supposed to be a Plymouth, cashing in on the cool of the Prowler. Don't you dare compare my little tin crap box to a PT Cruiser. Won the stupid showcase showdown. I had to rent one of these. I felt like fricking Herman Munster. It was fricking purple. I had bad credits. The only thing I wanted when I was a young teenager was a Mini Cooper. I loved those freaking cars. I'd watched the remake of The Italian Job many times. On my 16th birthday my father told me that he had gotten me one of those cars I loved so much. I was beyond ecstatic. I was the happiest teenager in the world. A short bit later and a PT Cruiser is unveiled. Somehow my father had gotten them confused. He had thought that the PT Cruiser was the car I was dreaming about. After a brief moment of complete heartbreak I realized that while this wasn't a Mini Cooper it was still a car given to me on my 16th birthday and that I was incredibly lucky to have it. I got over the disappointment, thanked my father, and drove the crap out of that PT Cruiser. It wasn't what I wanted but I was lucky to have it. It got me from place to place and could fit me and 3 friends and backpacks etc. It got the job done. I know this guy who is crazy into cars. He has a Kid Cobra built, a Mazda RX-7 that he put a V8 from a Corvette into. He has a Range Rover and a Mustang that has been tuned put out over 800 bhp, but if you ask him his favorite car of all time is the PT Cruiser. I think he said he has owned like 7 of them. He is always trading one out for a different color, different builds. Well, in the PT's defense, there is a turbo model that is quite buildable into a rather nasty sleeper. Next up, Pontiac Aztek owners. Heisenberg freaking loved his. My cousin was given one when her mother-in-law passed away. She was divorced from the man whose mother posthumously gifted her the car less than 2 months later. It was purple. She named it Grimace and drove it for years until she got her life back on track. Same with Cube owners. What were you thinking? There was that comedians in cars getting coffee app that suggested that the Cube was for people who wanted to blend in once the robots took over. Let him pass. He's driving a Cube. I had a PT Cruiser for 10 days. That was 6 years ago. The lower control arm broke while I was on the freeway. I headed into oncoming traffic and bounced off the guardrail on the opposite side of the freeway. I rolled 4-1-2 times and landed in the median. My seatbelt came undone and my ankle was ripped off of my leg except for 3 inches. I now have 13 screws and an 8-inch plate and I'm incredibly grateful to a team of doctors, nurses, and surgeons who were able to reattach it. It took 1 year to get out of a wheelchair and onto a walker, another year to make it to a cane, and another year on the cane. I can walk, but I have pain daily and I have a hip that just doesn't work anymore. It goes out on a regular basis. I wasn't able to care for my son for a year, and I'll never get his 2nd grade experience back. The daily pain is nothing compared to the PTSD. My dad bought me one without asking me. I feel bad sounding like an ungrateful brat, but holy crap, it was so lame and the gas mileage was atrocious. I don't miss you, Gladys, you piece of crap. My dad recently bought a PT Cruiser convertible for me and my brother to use, so at the moment, I'm drowning in pee. A long time ago, I worked at a rental car place. They had a few of these in the lot. I always wanted to drive one since I thought they looked so cool. What a freaking letdown. Mine is actually a prescription PT Cruiser. I have a condition known as hyperfertility, which means my sperm are so fertile, they can actually damage a woman's internal organs. Doctors prescribe PT Cruisers to hyperfertiles like me, so all women are repelled, and there's no danger of temptation. I know a family with 2 of them. They bought one, put flames on it, and loved it so much they bought another. I married into a PT Cruiser. She bought it from one of those salvage title Latino car lots where they only take cash. Broke college student, less than 30,000 miles, a decent bumper replacement job, all for under $4,000. What a steal, she thought. I will never forget sitting passenger, a combination of shame and discomfort. We eventually gave it to her grandmother, where she in turn gave it to the black sheep grandchild. Now it can be seen with child seats and cool cigarette smoke pouring from the windows as the fake wood siding peels off like the dead skin of a wind-struck sunburn. PT seem to eventually find their proper owners, hopeless white trash. My father died in 1994. Years later I received a call to tell me that he had left my brother and I a small amount of money and that we were now old enough to receive it. When I was a girl, my dad and I used to talk about cars all the time, and all he said to me was that one day he wanted me to be able to afford to buy a new car, to experience what it felt like to outright own a car, with no loan to the bank. So, when I got the money I decided to buy a car. Mine was a hunk of junk and I needed one. And I wanted to honor my dad. A few weeks before I went to buy my car, though, my mother had a health crisis and ended up needing to ride around in one of those hover-round-esque scooters. And her car was far too tiny to transport it. So, you ask what tragedy? The death of my father gave me the money to afford to buy a cruiser so that I could carry my mother's scooter around, so that she could still get out and have some freedom. You might think that car sucks, but I loved my cruiser. Every time I got in it I thought of my father, who was an incredible human being, and my mother, whom he loved so very much. These were my least favorite cars to valet. Always a complete mess on the inside and random crap wouldn't work. A friend of mine was gifted a maroon PT from his parents when he got his license. One day he was driving in front of me on a straight, flat road with smooth shoulders, flat fields on both sides, and nothing to hit within eyesight. He somehow managed to flip it onto its roof and slide to a stop. Expecting a horrible scene, I immediately stopped and ran up to help him, only to see him crawling out of the driver's window saying, "I really hope this piece of crap is totaled." So, my grandmother-in-law owns one, just like 99% of the other cases here. She's the sweetest lady ever. She says, "You know what I like about my car? They don't make them anymore, so you can't tell if it's new or old." The statement obviously made zero sense, but she's way too sweet to make her feel anything but love, so I didn't say anything, of course. My dad bought one of the first points to arrive in central PA. He still drives it every day. It's had no real problems and he still loves it. I actually do too, although about 100 more HP would be nice. Not me, but one of my good friends. His uncle promised to give him a car on his 17th birthday. The only exception was, my friend had to smash his Xbox with a baseball bat. He wanted him to prove that he was becoming a man or something and that he was leaving his Xbox, along with other childish activities. In the past, my friend's uncle was kind of weird and would always do weird crap like this. Anyway, my friend eventually smashes said Xbox with a baseball bat and his uncle gives him the keys to the car. What he didn't know was that the car was a PT Cruiser. Now he not only has the worst car in existence, but a car that constantly reeks of weed and McDonald's. I lived in a house with 6 other guys in college. The only one with a car had a PT Cruiser. We walked a lot. My mom's bumper has fallen off due to a redneck rear-ending her. She didn't call the cops cause she trusted him. Mistake. And his trashy wife insisted it never happened. Needless to say, we did not have the mullah to fix it. So the bumper was hanging off and we fixed it with pink zebra duct tape. 2 years and going strong. It's sad that duct tape is stronger than the car. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.